Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat, our TNA show. My name is George Coles. This is my tag team partner, Brian Clark.
Gary Rhodes, everybody. Well, I was going to start off the show on a somber note. Wrestling lost another great performer this week, Brian Armstrong. Some of you might remember. I'm sorry, Brad. not BG, I'm sorry. Brad Armstrong, I'm sorry.
He was Fantasia with the Freebirds and Bad Street. They switched
the Yellow Dog.
The Yellow Dog was
I thought he was Yellow Dog.
No, he wasn't the Yellow Dog. Yellow Dog was Wyndham.
No, I think he was a Yellow Dog too, because he was smaller.
Anyways.
No one knows what he passed away from this week. He's only 51 years old. So it's very sad when someone that you grew up watching dies. And
he's probably the best of the Armstrong family in the ring. He wasn't that great on the stick, but he was a great in-ring competitor. He was good in the WCW light heavyweight division in the early 90s, if you guys remember that.
Yeah, Pillman and him, and there were a lot of two of the bigger baby faces back into that division.
Yeah, so rest in peace, Brad. Sorry about the sad news. Sorry to set this out. And speaking of that, to all our friends and fans up in the Northeast, in the areas that have been hit by Hurricane Sandy, we hopefully if you're watching this means you guys got power back. There are some areas out there that are just totally devastated. Hopefully there's a speedy recovery up there as well.
Yeah.
But on to the wrestling show, what we're here to talk about. The first night, it's open fight night, so anybody could call anybody and they're supposed to have to answer. The first thing that came out was Joseph Park calling out one of the Aces and Eights, which brought out the whole group, which brought out Sting and Angle and Joseph Park, and all just pretty much a little mishmash fight there.
So I like the way Abyss is playing Joseph Park's character, where he's very afraid, very
timid.
Yes, and even during the melee, then he was really hiding from everybody else. He's doing it good. I wasn't really sold on the character before, but you get kind of tired of seeing the same guy play a monster all the time. I do miss seeing Abyss, and I think this Aces and Eights deal will bring him back.
Yeah, it should. And then after that match, we had Magnus call out Samoa Joe for the TV title match. I think it was one of the more entertaining matches of the night. I liked the finish with the wrench, hitting him with the wrench in the head. But I know you liked something that happened after the match a lot better.
Oh, Joe's promo, man. It brought back original Joe. I really liked it. How did you feel about it?
Joe is going to kill you.
It brings it back. And that's what he needs to be again. He needs to be that Samoan submission machine that he once was, instead of being a bitch.
Abyss?
No, a bitch.
Is that Abyss's cousin?
Yeah, exactly. But like I said, Joe's promo was good. The next part was something that kind of reminded me of you.
What's that?
Inside of Jeff Hardy's brain.
How does Jeff Hardy's brain? It's filled with nothing but Coke, 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 Coke. Where's the Coke? Where's the Coke? Where's the Coke? Where's the Coke? Speed, 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 speed.
It's like I wonder what goes to your brain sometimes. What goes to your brain, George? Golly, man, I'm getting big. I could go for something to eat right about now. ECW, Mick Foley, Cactus Jack, Raven. God, I hate Mike Awesome. Glad he's dead. But anyways, I mean, really, what goes through there? Was that it?
What goes through your brain?
I ain't saying.
Hey, again, it's a goofy little segment. I know our friend the Mass Tweeter likes it for its newness, but I don't like it that much. I think it's a little bit stupid.
I think so too. I really think they're really trying to bring the cartoon era back. And the reason I like watching TNA is because it's more adult oriented.
Yeah. Now, coming off of that, we had Kaz and Daniels came out, and they called out Willie Urbina and the gobbledygooker Hector Guerrero.
Is that how we did it?
I mean, you gotta ask Scheme Gene.
I know.
But they brought him down, beat him up basically, which brought out Hernandez and Chavo. Again, this starts a trend, really. The whole night, there's a lot of fights without actual matches.
Yes.
Which is kind of, like you just said about why you like TNA, One of the reasons I like TNA is because there's more wrestling on the show than there is on the WWE shows.
Well, you figure a 2-hour TNA show and a 3-hour WWE show, you get more matches and more quality matches. I hate to say that because, I mean, WWE is the bigger company, but most of the time you get better quality matches out of the TNA.
Yeah, they constantly put on pay-per-view quality matches on their TV shows. I'm not saying that there's not good matches on WWE television.
And we'll talk about that later on, too, because there's something else that kind of irritated me about tonight's show, but it's later on.
Now, the next thing was Gut Check with Christian York, and his Gut Check opponent was Zema Ion.
Awesome match.
I liked it a lot. I really hope they give Christian York a spot on the team. There were a couple times in there, I don't know if it's the fact that they've never worked with each other, but you could see where they spotted out the match where they called the next sequence and they went through it a little slower than I would have liked. Just nitpicking right here now. I mean, to me, when it's obvious that it's a called spot, it kind of hurts it to me.
Yes. Like I said, it was a good match. There was plenty of called spots. I think, like you said, maybe they should have gone over the match more before they had the match.
Yeah.
Some people work better that way.
Yeah.
And when you're dealing with a guy that's Zema's not been in the business too long, where
About 4 years
yeah.
or so.
When you're York, you're wanting to show off your skills, so you really want to work with this guy.
I thought he had a good he had a good showing. He has some good moves. He's got a good size. He's someone that I think can come in, go right into the X division, and be a solid contender.
And I like the way that Zema didn't beat him fair.
Speaking of it, where is the X division? Where are guys like Sanjay Dutt and Kenny King that are in their X division, and Dan Darso's kid?
Yeah.
Where are these guys at? Why are they not on TV? Why are...
Well, I got another question for you on top of that. Talking about our next match, it was ODB versus Jesse from, is he from Big Brother? Because they mentioned it like 15 freaking times an episode. There's 2 women on the show and the referee. Where's all the other women wrestlers at?
Yeah, where's Gail Kim at?
You have all this talent, and it's just going to waste by putting the Big Brother kid on TV show. And I do think, because we were talking about it during the match, that ODB was giving him some receipts on his chest, because you can see she was slapping so hard she was making blood come out.
Well, just trying to teach him respect for the business, in my opinion. But and like you said, normally we don't even talk about Divas matches or Knockouts matches, but
if you're gonna have it on there, act like you give a shit.
Yeah, and TNA does at times. I mean, they do. They push more of the wrestling side, again, like what I said earlier about wrestling. They push the wrestling side of their women's division more, and to have a gimmicky comedy match in there, I didn't like it.
But Jesse, is he from Big Brother?
Yes, he's from Big Brother. Now, coming off of that, another guy that looks like he should be a reality star, Robbie E., after talking in the back with Austin Aries, calls out Jeff Hardy.
And they already thinking.
They have their little match with Robbie T on the outside, who continues to try to cheat. Hardy gets a win. Aries comes out. They do a little promo afterwards, setting up for a ladder match at the pay-per-view. Go figure, Jeff Hardy in a ladder match.
Exactly. Well, the one thing we were talking about Robbie E. before, I don't know if it was last week's show or the week before, and you brought this up, that they have this tag team division. Why don't they put him and Big Robbie T together as a tag team? They have them going side by side. Robbie T's either in his corner or he's in Robbie.
And they got matching gear too.
Exactly. Why don't you just make them a tag team and get it over with? A true tag team.
Or at least let Robbie contend for the TV title or the X Division title. I mean, I think the gimmick's crap. The gimmick's kind of a Zack Ryder ripoff gimmick, but
the kid makes it work for him, though.
Yeah.
It looks legit on him. It's not like a pasty-faced, blonde, blue-haired or blue-eyed kid coming out there saying he's from the Jersey Shore. You got a spray tan having, Guido, with the big old souped up hair, and we're Italian, so I can say it. I can say it.
You're not Italian.
Well, I don't claim it. My knuckles aren't quite as hairy. Which brings up the next
Your
match.
girlfriend's lip is.
Yeah, it sure is. So is her knuckles. The next segment, because it wasn't really a match, was when Bobby Roode comes out and says he's not calling anybody out for open fight night. He's just out there bullshitting, and AJ's music hits. And then they get into it.
And then AJ brought up a little bit of dug at the WWE for the gimmick. The John Cena AJ Lee is basically a ripoff of the Claire Lynch and AJ Styles gimmick. and he even goes, you know, we got pictures and videotape of AJ's going into the elevators. That must be a popular thing nowadays for AJ's.
So, after all that, guess whose music hits after they start having a little, melee?
Thunderlips?
Yes, brother.
Sterling Golden?
Sterling Golden. So how much does that make?
Oh. The Hulk Hogan Thunderlips count for the week is 4. 4 Thunderlips.
Exactly.
And this is about as good a time as any for our question
Talking
of the
about
week.
questionable. Question of the week.
Our question of the week last week is they switched the format with the announce team. They have 2 announce teams, one that does the first half, the second does the second half. We asked you guys what you thought about it, if you like the 2-team format, the 1-team format, or you want something totally different. Now we got our friend Lou sent us an answer. He put, I would rather see Taz and Mike Tenay than the new group. Actually, I'd prefer Taz and Anderson. That would be a great announce team since they like to screw Anderson over. I like that idea. I think Anderson's a good enough talker that he could pull it off. I think there's some guys that are more made to be announcers and to be wrestlers. Jesse the Body Ventura, to me, now I didn't see the height of Jesse's career. I seen the tail end of it. But Jesse, to me, was always a better announcer than a wrestler.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And even to some extent, and Jerry Lawler was a better announcer to me than he was a wrestler. Not saying that Jerry Lawler was a bad wrestler, he was just a great announcer.
Well, you had a lot of great wrestlers that have been announcers for a little bit of time. You had Piper, he was good announcing. Savage was good.
Mr. Perfect?
Mr. Perfect, the best. Perfect.
Mm.
I know you're going to say that. What's your opinion on it?
I kind of like Lou's idea. To me, I like a one announce team through the whole show. I kind of like how he put. I agree with him. What the problem is that Mike Tenay is stale.
Mm.
Why not bring somebody in like a Tony Schiavone back, or even somebody that's working the indies as an announcer? I'm sure there's some announcers on these indie shows. Kevin Kelly does a good job with Ring of Honor. Nigel McGuinness.
That'd be good. He worked for the company before.
He does a good job with Ring of Honor. Some of the other guys that I can't think of off the top of my head that do some of these indie shows. I mean, you guys, if you watch indie wrestling, you see them on DVDs. They're not bad. They're give somebody new a shot. I think Mike Tenay. To me, Mike Tenay
was the jobber announcer for WCW.
And he brings the product down, in my opinion, a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
The idea of having one announce crew for this show is what it just needs. Just one announce crew. You don't need to switch over. It's only a 2-hour show. Raw needs 2 announce crews, but that's a different show altogether. Tenay is boring. I would bring in somebody else. Somebody like they're not really working on too much.
Did I mention Ed Ferrara?
Oklahoma?
No, I mean, but
he did good when he was with them. I thought so.
Yeah, when he was the announcer for TNA.
You need a decent heel announcer, and that's what you need. You can't have 2 baby faces. Taz has gotten 2 baby face, but Taz is a little bit more clever on the stick than.
You know, it would be absolutely great, but he'll never do it as Joey Styles.
No.
Joey Styles and Taz, I thought they were great on the revamped ECW, which...
That was the only good point about the revamped ECW.
Oh, that, and it built up some guys like Sheamus and Punk.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, they got Sheamus, Punk, Kofi Kingston came from there.
So, speaking of bringing somebody up, let's go to this week's question of the week.
The question of the week is the 3 men that were announced, Bobby Roode, AJ Styles, and James Storm. Who do you think... Now, that's going to be a match at the next pay-per-view for the number 1 contender. Who do you think is the best contender to wrestle Jeff Hardy? Who do you think's going to be the best opponent for Jeff Hardy? Let us know what you think. Hit us up on our Twitter. Hit us up on Facebook. Put it down where?
Down there.
You swinging for it, Sting?
You dang right. Another thing I want to bring up about that, too, is how screwed up is it that the guy that gets pinned or submits during this match don't get a title shot until next year's BFG?
I kind of like that.
I think it works out good. I think they're.
And I'm gonna say my opinion on that because I've already formed an opinion on who's gonna take the pin.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna save that for next week. Now, coming off of that, our next match was Joey Ryan versus Rob Van Dam. the whole effing show.
We could say fucking on here.
I'm just going with the song.
Okay.
It's Sing Along with the Champ.
Sorry, Micker.
You liked that one, didn't you?
Old Mick Foley got it again.
It was a decent match. Oh, and leading into that, we had the angle where they showed Hulk Hogan's beach shop, and Matt Morgan went there and stole his robe from when he fought Andre the Giant in Shea Stadium back in '81. Which is kind of weird that they mention it, because they don't really mention that match too much, because they want you to think the first time Hogan fought Andre was at WrestleMania 3.
Babyface Hogan versus heel Andre.
I don't know if it's a real robe or not. It looks real. It looks the same. I don't know if they got a seamstress to make one. I mean,
they probably did. You know, I'm sure if Hogan still had that robe, as much emotion as he had tied to it, I doubt he'd have it there. It's probably still at the real robe's probably at his shop, if it's anywhere. If Linda didn't get it, well, imagine that night though. You're in the ring against Andre, and you have classy Freddie Blassie, your cousin, isn't it?
Well, he's a distant relative of mine. He's my grandmother's second cousin. I've never met the guy personally, but I do know that Freddie Blassie is related to my family.
But I mean, you imagine that night. You know, you're in a packed Shea Stadium, and you're in there against Andre. You got Freddie.
And the main event was the steel cage match: Larry Zbyszko versus Bruno Sammartino.
A guy that Hogan overshadowed later on in his career.
Yeah, and that was one of the biggest cards of all time. Still to this day, it's still one of the biggest cards that the WWF, WWE, whatever you want to call them, has put out. And that he stole that robe, and he's wearing it to the ring, saying he's going to do more with that robe than Hogan ever did.
Well, it remains to be seen. I think Morgan is just pure untapped talent. I mean,
yeah, he's a big guy. He's a big guy that can move. He has a little bit of talking ability, but to be that huge, you don't need to have great talking ability. Which leads us into the match that Joey Ryan versus Rob Van Dam was a decent match. Showed a little bit of what Joey could do, how he can get in there and wrestle with a guy that's an active wrestler instead of Al Snow. And
he did good. He played the Weasley part really well.
Yeah.
I think so.
I did like his comment. I want to bring the X back to the X division, or the rated X to the X division.
Well, he also mentioned VD too.
Yeah.
RVD. But anyways,
decent match. RVD ends up getting hit with the carbon footprint, which the whole thing seems to be putting Matt Morgan over as a legitimate threat for the world title.
And that's what he says he's going to go for. And he's going to eat. Was it eat or go through?
Eat through and shit him out.
Exactly.
When they bleeped out shit.
Yes, and that's funny because I think that's a little poke at Ryback too.
It might be. And then our next match, the main event of the night. This one hurt me, GR. It was like when Mommy and Daddy used to fight. Bully Ray and Devon. Bully Ray calls out Devon, which brings out the Aces and Eights, which brings out the locker room.
Bully and Devon didn't really handle each other too much, did they?
Other than no, just a little bit.
Yeah. I think they're saving it. And that's what kind of irritated me, is because, you know, before they announced the open fight night, Angle's like, I don't want Devon. And he goes, Bully's tonight. You get him at the pay-per-view. Why would you give the pay-per-view match for television and make the television match for pay-per-view? Now, don't get me wrong. Angle was a main event guy. I'm not saying that.
Not at all.
But the main storyline, the feud, is between these two.
Yep. And I totally agree with you. And it led to another thing, which was a running story throughout the show. Another fight, not a match. And these guys are all fighting, and it ends up with Joseph Parks and the big guy that they previously called the Arm Breaker as Aces and Eights. And Joseph Parks grabs his mask. Sting had been promising all night someone would get unmasked. Joseph Parks grabs his mask, and who is it, GR?
Luke Gallows.
Shocker, like we haven't been saying that for weeks on this show.
And the thing is, I told George as soon as, you know, they're in the ring together, I was like, his mask's coming off because it was so loose on the bottom.
Yeah.
Because all Abyss did was, or Parks did, was just grab it and it came right off. But after that came a nasty choke slam through the table.
Yeah. Gallows did hit him with and they didn't mention him by name, so who knows what they're going to call him on the show.
Exactly.
I don't think they could call him Gallows. It's not his real name. That's his gimmick name in WWE. He's been going by the XLG or Big LG in the Indies. But I did like how Tenay threw out there that this guy's been known to be a bodyguard for some of the best wrestlers in the world.
Yeah. I don't think that Tenay or I have like a lot of personal things against Punk. So even if Punk hates the company, but I don't think no one has a thing against him.
No. But overall, I thought the show lacked a little bit. I thought there was too much fights, not enough wrestling. Too much like the ODB Jesse match where it was just garbage. The highlights for me were the Christian York versus Ema Iron match, the Joe and Magnus. Anytime you put these two together, I really enjoy their interactions with each other. And Robbie E versus Jeff Hardy, I really liked.
My highest point of the night was the promo.
The Joe promo.
No, the Kaz and Daniels promo, actually. And I like the Joe promo, but I just liked how Kaz and Daniels are just working heel so good.
But basically, is there anything else you needed to add to this?
I don't think we needed anything.
I think that's all I got to say. My name's George Coles.
Gary Rhodes.
And this has been our Heel Heat TNA show.